I'm really happy welcomed me and welcome the Filipinos. There are a lot of them here.
The crowd in Linz was already surging before the first ball was struck. Inside a 3,000-seat center court in Austria, Alex Eala walked into a wall of noise that sounded nothing like an away match.
Played the big points really well.
This was supposed to be a clay season opener against the local favorite. Instead, the 20-year-old from the Philippines stepped into something far bigger, a traveling declaration that her people do not wait for permission to make themselves heard. And when the score settled at 6-4, 6-3, one detail mattered even more than the straight sets win: what those fans turned center court into before Julia Grabher ever had a chance to claim it. Less than 2 weeks after Miami, Eala arrived in Linz for her first clay match of 2026 and was placed straight onto center court for a round of 32 clash with Austria's top local hope, Julia Grabher. In the last 24 hours, that placement had already paid off. Alex won 6-4, 6-3, and earned a round of 16 date with Jelena Ostapenko. The fresh detail that gave this story its pulse was personal. Eala spent time handing out stacks of her own Eala shirts to fans in the stands, collapsing the usual distance between player and crowd. So by the time April 7th arrived in Linz, this was no longer just a draw sheet matchup. It was a test of who would own the building. Julia Grabher was not a villain, and that is exactly why this story lands. She was the Austrian #1 playing on home soil on a surface that historically asks harder questions of Eala than hard court does. By normal tennis logic, that setting should have tilted toward the home player. Austrian crowd, Austrian name on the schedule, Austrian comfort on clay. But Linz did not behave normally. The tension here was not hostility, it was displacement. A hometown favorite stepped onto her own court and found the emotional center of the arena leaning somewhere else. According to circulating social media claims, there was some confrontation around this match, but no credible mainstream source confirmed any of it. And honestly, fake scandal would have cheapened what really happened. The true twist was stronger than gossip. Grabher did not lose her crowd to controversy. She lost it to a movement. Because once those Filipino voices started rolling through the arena, this stopped feeling like a routine WTA 500 opener and started feeling like a national export. Start with the most official signal of all: center court was not an accident. Tournament organizers placed Eala versus Grabher on the main stage at the Design Center Linz, with roughly 3,000 seats in play. In a week full of options, that was the match they chose to spotlight. That decision matters. Main courts are where events place the players they trust to carry atmosphere, attention, and urgency. Before the first rally, Linz had already made its judgment about who could energize the room. But a court assignment only becomes a statement when the seats answer back. And those seats answered in Filipino. Videos and on-site coverage captured chants, laughter, shirt waves, and the kind of crowd rhythm that cannot be manufactured by a marketing department. The line that cut through everything was pure diaspora gold. Alex, may pansit sa bahay. That chant is funny on the surface. It is also deeply intimate. In English, it roughly means there is pansit waiting at home, a phrase that turns food, family, and belonging into noise. In that moment, Austria did not feel distant. Home had been carried into the arena and shouted into the match. Then came the shirts. Eala was not just receiving love from the stands, she was feeding it back, handing out stacks of EALA branded shirts directly to fans. Witnesses did not describe a passive audience. They described a crowd being activated by the player herself with enough energy that security had to manage the surge. That detail changes the whole temperature of the story. This was not celebrity from a distance. This was connection at arm's length. Fans did not merely show up for Alex Eala in Linz. They were invited into the performance before the first serve. April 5th brought the media day buzz. April 7th brought the proof. Before the match, Eala said, "I'm expecting a good battle." That line matters because it refused the trap of overstatement. No grand promise, no attempt to manufacture bravado, just clarity. And then she went out and honored the difficulty of the moment by mastering it. She beat Julia Grabher 6-4, 6-3 in 1 hour and 34 minutes. Straight sets. First clay win of the 2026 season. First WT a 500 clay victory. Put yourself in Grabher's position for a second. You are the home player. The court is yours by geography. The surface is yours by familiarity. And yet every key turn of the match is amplified by a roar that does not belong to your flag. That is not a minor inconvenience. That is emotional pressure with a scoreboard attached to it. And Eala handled that pressure exactly the way rising stars announce themselves, by making the noise useful instead of heavy. She did not get swallowed by expectation. She rode it. She absorbed the energy, settled the rallies, and walked out with a result that gave all that pre-match electricity a final shape. This is where the audience that believed in her deserves its moment too. If you have been saying Alex Eala's reach extends beyond rankings and brackets, Linz just handed you hard evidence. A 3,000-seat main court in Austria did not feel charged because of marketing copy. It felt charged because supporters recognized her pull before the sport's old hierarchies fully adjusted to it. And the deepest part of that proof is the pattern. First came the crowd frenzy around her arrival, then the shirt giveaway, then the chants. Then the 6-4, 6-3 result, not chaos, not coincidence, a sequence. That sequence is the signature of a people's champion. Fans invest, the player responds, the arena changes, the match follows. By the time Eala advanced to face Ostapenko in the round of 16, Linz was no longer simply hosting a tournament. It was hosting a transfer of atmosphere, from host nation expectation to Filipino ownership of the moment. And when the host event itself starts talking that way, the argument is over. Sandra Reichel is not some random voice chasing a viral moment. She is the tournament director of the Linz Open, a long-running stop on the women's tour now operating at WTA 500 level. And she speaks from the perspective of someone whose job is to understand what fills a venue and what resonates beyond it. Her words were direct. You have an amazing player. Alexandra is unbelievable, fantastic for the Philippines. Listen to what that means coming from her chair. That is the person responsible for the event, the building, the presentation, and the audience experience, effectively acknowledging that Eala is not just another name in the draw. She is an event force. Reichel was not describing potential in the abstract. She was reacting to something visible, immediate, and impossible to miss. And once a smaller European venue starts vibrating like that around a Filipino player, the meaning stretches well past one first-round result. Tennis has spent years talking about growth, about new audiences, about reaching beyond its traditional centers of gravity. Linz offered a real answer. Growth is not a slogan. Growth is a player from the Philippines stepping onto clay in Austria and sounding like the emotional home side. That matters now because the calendar is about to ask bigger questions. Ostapenko is next in Linz. After that, the clay swing opens wider with Stuttgart and Madrid on the horizon, and every one of those stops becomes a fresh test of how portable this support really is. If Eala keeps stacking disciplined wins on the surface that has challenged her most, a return toward the top 30 becomes a live possibility again, not because hope is loud, but because results on clay change careers faster than people expect. And the tour notices when a player brings both performance and atmosphere. That is why the Miami reminder matters. On March 23rd, Karolina Muchova beat Eala 6-0, 6-2 in the round of 16. That scoreline stripped everything down. No flattering narrative, no soft landing. What followed is why Linz carries weight. Alex surfaced in Austria, embracing the Austrian challenge, kept the tone upbeat, and earlier said she was expecting a good battle. 2 weeks after a brutal hard-court loss, she stepped onto clay and gave the crowd 94 minutes of control.
Played the big points really well.
Center court, 3,000 seats. Alex, may pansit sa bahay, shirts flying into the stands. A 6-4, 6-3 win over the home favorite. Then the tournament director herself calling Alexandra unbelievable. That is the full picture. Alex Eala did not borrow center court in Austria for one night. She filled it with Filipino presence, turned support into pressure and proved that when her community arrives with her, the venue starts bending in her direction. So here is the question that matters now. Against Yelena Ostapenko on clay, does this Linz energy carry Alex one round further, or was Grabher the perfect opening door for the Filipino army? And looking beyond Linz, which stop feels most dangerous for the rest of the field, Stuttgart or Madrid? If you felt this wave building before Austria made it undeniable, this is your corner. Subscribe and stay with a community that spots these turning points early, tracks them match by match, and refuses to wait for the mainstream to catch up. Linz was not an isolated night. It was a signal, and the people who understood that first should be here when the next roar hits.